Today we're going to talk about a first aid kit for your car. So this is the third video in our first aid kit series. If you want to see the first two videos, a little link up in the corner there for you or down in the video description. If you want to make sure you see the rest of these videos, make sure you hit the little subscribe button so you don't miss the other videos. So in the last video, we talked about EDC first aid kits, or our pocket first aid kit, covering just some basics for when you're out in a crowded area or you're somewhere where you have access to a higher level of care in a pretty quick fashion. Now, a kit to go in your car needs to be a little different. This needs to have a little more capacity because you're not always close to a higher level of care when you're in your car. Sometimes you're on a road trip, sometimes you're out driving, so this needs to be able to handle a little bit more. You may be a long ways from the nearest gas station or hospital, and sometimes you need to deal with things like a motor vehicle accident or just an upset stomach or a sudden bout of... Let's talk a bit about what you need to look for when you're putting together a first aid kit for your car. Your kit should be easy to access. Wherever you put this in your car, you need to be able to get to it quickly. So you don't want it to be too big where it gets buried or it gets cumbersome. You want it to be able to fit under a seat, near the door, someplace where you can get to it quickly. Having it in some sort of bag is fine, or a case, something like this, or even putting it in a Rubbermaid tote, something small like this is great too, so you can see everything that's in your kit. Also make sure whatever container your first aid kit is in, it's clearly marked. This bag, I have a patch stuck on the front there. This bag is marked that it's a first aid kit, or if you're using some sort of tote like this, just write first aid kit on the top. Make sure that it's clearly marked because you might not be the one using that first aid kit all the time. You might need to send someone to the car and tell them to grab the first aid kit from under the driver's seat. So make sure it's clearly marked as a first aid kit. So in our other videos about first aid, we talked about first education being the most important thing you can have when you're putting together a first aid kit. And in our last video about the pocket kits, we talked about the ABCs and the priorities of care when you're giving first aid and the things you need to remember. We went through all of those first aid acronyms, and basically there's those 5 questions you need to consider when you're giving first aid. Is it safe? Are they bleeding? Is their heart beating? Are they breathing? Do they have any other injuries? So with that in mind, let's take a look at what's in this first aid kit. You'll notice that the things that I need to access the most quickly are on the outside of the kit, or easy to get to pockets, and also the things that I use the most frequently are in easy to get to places. So let's start on the outside of the kit here. Clipped on this side is a Cpr Face Shield, and this is a CRKT Keychain Emergency Rescue Tool, or a CURT tool. I have it wrapped in tape because it tends to get snagged on things, and I've cut through some things that I didn't want cut. It has a little cover that comes with it, but the cover does not stay on. Also on this side of the bag, I have a pair of shears, and I have a glove pouch. This is just a little pouch that you can reach in and pull gloves out very quickly. On the back of the bag, in this pocket, there's 2 trauma dressings. These are for controlling large bleeding injuries. And on this side of the bag, in this little pocket, there is a cat tourniquet. Now on the front, this pocket holds some things that I need to get to, not in an emergency, but that I like to have access to quickly. Hand sanitizer, sanitizer wipes, and some extra face masks. These are very useful when you're out on the road, if you need to run in a store, or if you stop at a rest stop and you just need to clean your hands, and sometimes you're required to wear a mask places. If you don't have one, it's nice to have some extras. I also keep in this front pocket a little roll of garbage bags. These are little dog poop bags. These bags are really nice to hold garbage, diapers, whatever you need to use them for. On the back of this front flap, there is a SAM splint. It's a 36-inch SAM splint for sprains or breaks. This front pouch just has a whole lot of little things. First of all, there's a bag of bandages and small items. So this bag has 4x4 gauze pads, large bandages, small bandages, steri strips, and alcohol wipes. Also in this compartment is a tube of Medi-Honey gel. I carry Medi-Honey in my first aid kits instead of like a Neosporin or an antibiotic ointment. That's just my preference. I really like Medi-Honey. I used it a lot when I was doing wound treatment. So that's my preference. You can carry whatever you like, an antibiotic ointment, whatever you choose to put in your first aid kit. Also in here I carry a Sharpie. I also keep a couple of ink pens and a notepad. There's a small flashlight. This is a light that will clip onto the brim of your hat if you need a hands-free light. There's a pair of tweezers. And in this pocket is a multi-tool. This is not just great to have in your car, but having a pair of pliers and a knife and just an assortment of little tools is very valuable to have in a first aid kit. This little bag on the top has different medications in it, and we'll get to those in just a second. In this main compartment, we've got a couple rolls of cohesive bandage, or Coban, a couple of ace wraps, some rolls of tape, and a couple of rolls of rolled gauze. Let's real quick take a look at what's in this bag with the medications. So in this bag I carry Benadryl, anti-diarrheal, glucose tabs for diabetic emergencies, ibuprofen and Tylenol. Is there generic brand Dayquil, antacids, and cough drops. Any medication that's in a first aid kit needs to be sealed in some type of original packaging that is clearly labeled with what the medication is and what the dosage is. That way there's never any confusion as to what the medication is, and if you give it to somebody, you know exactly what it is that they're taking or what it is that you're taking. For a small kit like this, I like to get these bubble packs because you can slide them into a bag. For some medications that are harder to find in bubble packs, you can get little travel size bottles. Another option is to just get small bottles of medications. These are just generic brands of ibuprofen, Tylenol, antacids, Benadryl, and you can get very small bottles that don't take up a lot of space and fit in a sandwich bag as well. Small bottles of a generic brand are usually the same price or cheaper than the little travel bottles of a name brand medication, and they usually have more in these small bottles than are in the little travel bottles. So that's my first aid kit for the car. It's a very capable first aid kit. It can handle a pretty broad range of both emergencies and non-emergent first aid issues, and it's great for a road trip. It's been a lifesaver on a lot of road trips just having all of these things with us in the car where they're easy to get to. So let me know what you think. Do you carry a first aid kit in your car? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, click on that little like button. And if you want to see any more videos or see the next first aid video, make sure you hit the subscribe button. See you next time.